So you're talking about the flooding. Let me ask the question about Noah's Ark. So a story comes out, Rob, if you can play that clip, the one article I sent you that says archaeologists think they might have found the real Noah's Ark. Did you read this article? Have you looked into this or no?
Probably.
Where it says a mountain in Turkey shows evidence of human activity in the area around the biblical
Mount
flood
Ararat.
is said to be Mount Ararat, which that's the Armenian name, mountain. Archaeologists lived there. They discovered the final location of Mount Ararat, Mount Noah's Ark. Soil samples from the top to highest peaks in Turkey reveal human activity and marine materials. Dating of the rock and soil from the location match with biblical timing of Noah's Ark. Researchers from a trio of University of Turkey and United States have spent roughly a year analyzing the rock and soil in the famous Duripanar Formation on Mount Ararat, the highest mountain in Turkey. They believe that the boat-shaped site may hold the ruins of the legendary Noah's Ark. The biblical account of Noah tells God instructed Noah to build a giant ark to spare his family and pair of animals from an impending flood meant to destroy the evil and wickedness running rampant on earth. Noah's Ark is said to have come to rest on the mountains of Ararat following a 150-day flood about 5,000 years ago.
Yeah, Duripanar, right, there it is. Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is when you look into the biblical Hebrew for the description of the ark, it's usually the ark is built of gopher wood, which in the Hebrew is gimel pei resh, but it had an alternate meaning, gimel pei resh. You can look that up. I've done quite a bit of research on that, and it actually originally meant papyrus reeds. And the earliest known shipbuilding techniques were papyrus reeds, but it was further. They went, you know, the pitch that was used on it, I think, was part of the whole system that they used. This would be a whole discussion in itself, Pat, that would be very interesting to get into.
Tell me about it. I want to know a little bit about it. I'm curious myself. I'm Armenian. I'm Assyrian. So so what are we looking at right there?
Well, we're looking at it's about 430 feet long.
Okay.
Which is not the Hebrew cubit, modern Hebrew cubit, standard cubits up 18 inches, which is where we get to 300 cubits at 18 inches would be, 450 feet. This thing is a little bit longer than that, which suggests it was not using the modern Hebrew cubit, or that the Bible is not referring to the modern Hebrew cubit, but perhaps even the Egyptian cubit, which was longer. Egyptian cubit was about 21.6264. Look up royal cubit. I think it'd be about 20.62 inches in length, royal cubit. So this thing is 300 cubits long. Yeah, there's your common cubit, 18. Yeah, royal cubit, 20.64. So that thing that we were just looking at works out to be about 300 cubits if we're using the royal cubit rather than the modern Hebrew cubit, which is a coincidence. And the controversy over that thing, it's been around for years. 30 or 40 years ago, David Fassold wrote a really interesting book, I think came out in the 70s or early 80s, on that site. And, it was a lot of controversy whether it was natural or something not natural. And so I haven't kept up with the research, but this may be, there he is right there. Now that's a drogue stone that he's standing next to. And you see a big stone like that? It's got that hole in it. So if you've got an anchor chain or a rope, it goes through that hole and you drag it behind the boat in order to keep the keel aligned parallel with the current. Because if the keel gets out of parallel with the current, then it's gonna swamp. I've done a lot of canoeing, and I knew, when you're on a fast-moving river, you want to keep your keel aligned with the current, because as soon as it turns, transverse to the current, you're going to flip. So the drogue stone is towed behind the ship, and that keeps the keel aligned. So there are these really big drogue stones that have been found. Now, what ships were they? I don't know. But I think David Fassold was speculating that some of the big ones may have even been associated with ark-sized ships. And it's bizarre, but if you come over to North America and you look at legends of Native Americans, there was giant floods, and basically how they survived mostly was a couple of the primary ways they survived these giant floods that swept over the country and wiped out their ancestors was either a high mountain, which now would be a sacred mountain, or a great canoe. That was translated as a great canoe. Now, that has been dismissed by historians and archaeologists, saying that, well, they must have learned the story of Noah from missionaries, and then they grafted that onto their own religious traditions and so on. But that can be dispelled because we know that people like George Catlin, who was the Indian artist, who, when he spent decades and traveled and lived amongst dozens and dozens of Indian tribes, and he recorded all of their traditions and their beliefs. Rob, if you look up George Catlin, Caitlan, I believe, Indian artist, he recorded their accounts, and I have a great quote from him at the end of his book called Last Rambles. And basically he's saying that he went to all of, there's some of his artwork, George Catlin, not Caitlin. So at the end of his book, The Last Rambles, he's talking about the traditions of Native Americans. And he says that there was such a diversity of language and symbolism and beliefs and all that, but they all had one thing in common, and that was their belief that there had been this great flood. Now, what I've done is I've shown, absolutely, we can prove that there were great floods, certainly in North America, but it's showing up, the evidence for these gigantic floods is showing up all over the planet. And they're directly related to the Pleistocene, the extinction of the megafauna. Because when you have a big flood, one of the things it does is it rips up part of the earth in one place and then dumps it somewhere else. You have erosion and you have deposition. Well, if an animal is caught in a flood and they're not completely ending up getting disarticulated, their remains will then wash down and be found in the flood deposits. Most of the remains, the fossilized remains of megafauna that we find, are in megaflood deposits, in gravel pits, peat bogs, permafrost. So it looks to me like there was two factors. And if the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is true, which is appearing to be more and more so the case, it means you had simultaneous huge fires followed by huge floods. So what the fires didn't wipe out, the floods finished the job. There it is. The Younger Dryas was in a period in Earth's geological history that occurred circa 12,900 to 11,700 years before present.
In these uncertain times, if there's anything we need people to believe the future looks bright. So if you've heard about me saying this mission to you, we're on a mission to get 1 million people to wear this gear, and this is what we're doing. If you buy one of these hats, there's a category of buying one hat, getting the second one free. If you haven't yet worn this gear publicly, go ahead and test it out. Buy some of the gear, wear it in public, and see how many people will stop by and say, you also watch Valuetainment? You also follow PBD Podcast? I do too. Place your order. Go to vtmerch.com, click on the link above or below, place your order, and represent the VT and the PBD Podcast gear.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.